With those special votes, around 23,000 voting stations open. We know that special voting is taking place today and tomorrow from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And we'll be crisscrossing the country to bring you updates as people vote, see if there are any challenges with the voting. My colleague Diabo Seto is standing by with the Deputy CEO of the IEC to get a little bit more information about what's taking place today. Of course, that's part of SABC News SA Decides 2019 coverage, where we make sure that we bring you every part of the story, from the people who are voting, from the people who are affected, and the people who make the decisions. Diabo, it's over to you.
Thank you, Nzinga. Well, I am with the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer here, Mr. Masego Shiburi, who will give us an update on what's been happening nationally with the special votes. As Nzinga, my colleague, said that this year we saw around 770 or 740,000 people who have registered for special votes. And this is obviously double the number that we've seen back in 2014. Mr. Shiburi, thank you very much for your time. What is the picture nationally? How is everything going according to what the IEC is seeing?
We've opened all our voting stations at 9 in the morning as per schedule. If you remove a few instances where we were challenged, on the whole, I think we acquitted ourselves very well. We are on track to extend a right to vote to the 775,000 persons that have been approved by special votes. The majority of those are persons that will visit at homes, and the balance are people who will vote at our voting stations. The stations will remain open until 1700 hours today. If it's not done with all the special votes, we will open again stations tomorrow to deal with the residual of the voters.
I'm noting that last week, this time, you issued a statement saying that your ballot paper will now accommodate people who are blind, who use Braille. Have you had any reports about whether that process is going well, and if indeed that market or sector of the country, of the community, is satisfied?
The ballot paper itself doesn't accommodate Braille. We have introduced something that looks like a sleeve. We call it a universal ballot template. It aids persons who can read Braille to cast their vote without disclosing it. It also assists persons who are far-sighted, but it also helps persons who struggle with mobility so that they can make a tick which is confined to one block. So you take the ballot, you insert it into that sleeve, and a person that's able to read Braille, you just call out the number of parties in terms of sequence. They go into the booth, find the party of their choice on the sleeve, and make a choice. We have those at every voting station, and for everyone who is Braille literate, they will be able to vote without disclosing their choice.
And I'm wondering about other disabled persons. Are you making provisions for other disabled persons, such as people who are using wheelchairs? Are there people on the lines that will be standing to assist them? And for the special votes, do they fall into that category as well?
Persons who are disabled fall into the category of special votes. But if a person has missed an opportunity to apply for the special vote and they present themselves at our voting station on Wednesday, we have trained our staff to prioritize those persons, including the elderly and pregnant women, that queue workers will walk the queue, pull out those persons from the queue and prioritize them at the front of the queue.
Let's talk about an incident that happened, I believe it's in Limpopo this morning, where a passerby saw a box full of ballot papers that had been on the side of the road. If the IEC has noted that incident and what was happening there, if you could just explain to us and our viewers.
The instance happened yesterday, and just to clarify, there were no ballot papers involved. It is the bulk material. What the motorist found was unused ballot boxes. They fell off a vehicle en route for delivery to a voting station. It is a pack of 3 ballot boxes. We have replaced those ballot boxes for that station, and those instances should not materialize. But in these instances, we know who was responsible for transporting those ballot boxes. And as I say, there were no ballot boxes involved, and that aberration doesn't imperil the voting or the freeness or fairness of elections at that voting station.
Mr. Shiburi, as you would know, that each and every election period is marked by some sort of controversy surrounding corruption and fraud and all of that. How is the IEC dealing with that in 2019 to see to it that every voter is secured, that everything is going according to plan and there is no vote rigging by any chance?
Let's start with the special votes.
Yeah.
Each voter who votes by special vote will receive 2 envelopes. They make their mark and they insert the marked ballot into the envelopes. The first envelope has nothing on it. The second envelope is marked with the details of the voter to avoid instances that you're raising, so that we know that every person who voted by special vote was a person entitled a special vote. Once we verified that, we discard the outer envelope. We remain only with the unmarked envelope. That way we break the link between the choice of the voter and the voter. We have party agents during the voting process. Similarly, we have party agents during the counting process. Everything happens in the glare of party agents. We account for all ballot papers that we provide at the voting station. When you open the stations, similarly, when we release the result for each voting station, we first account for the ballot papers received, used, and those that were cancelled. So there is no opportunity for vote rigging as it is alleged.
Mr. Chiburi, I'd like you to just stand on my side so that the camera could pan. I'd like the camera to pan to the front, to our front. This is where you see the various political parties being seated. Won't you just explain to our viewers what the political parties will be doing while seated here?
Each of the 48 political parties that are contesting this election has a table and a computer and presence at the result operation center. They have access to the result system in the same way that I have access to it. As the results come in, I don't have a head start on the result. I receive them at the same time as the political receive them. Yes, they can log onto the system, raise queries with us. We'll investigate those queries and resolve them on the system. But they could also, more importantly, access the results that have been captured into the system to compare whether what we've captured resembles the result that was published at the voting station. That way we can also deal with discrepancies between the results that we've left at the stations and the result that ended up into our result system. Let
me ask you again to turn once more to the desks behind us. If our cameras could just pan to that, and maybe you can explain to us, these are IEC officials and what they will be doing here and how significant their job is.
These are IEC officers responsible. They are the engine of running the elections. What they do is that they collate issues from across the country. They help us to collate reports. They deal with complaints from political parties. A party can capture on their table. The system will reflect an issue here. They will investigate and resolve all those issues. Once we start the count and issuing the result, they are responsible for processing the collation of results to do what we call exception on the result. For example, where there are more party votes for a party on one election and less on another election, that result will not be confirmed until we've investigated it, and these are the persons that investigate those things. If there's a need for a voting station to request an audit window typically occurs where a result has been captured, but we find that there is something wrong on that result. Okay. It will come here for investigation, and these people will open the edit window to enable the local office to capture the result in the presence of political parties.
Mr. Chiburi, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. That is Mr. Masego Chiburi. He is with the IEC as the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. And I will hand over back to Nzinga. Nzinga, I'm sure you've learned a lot about what happens here on the floor.
I have, Diabo, and throughout the course of the day, the SABC is going to be sharing numbers with you. We're going to be sharing information with you in the lead up to that May 8th election. Of course, today is Special Votes Day. We've mentioned over and over again, over 700,000 people voting. We're bringing you stories from the different provinces as they come in, telling you what people are thinking, how they're voting, challenges that they're experiencing, and analysis throughout the day. For now, it's back to you in studio in Auckland Park.